The one where Triple H, the game, establishes himself. Around 1999, the WWF began pushing two young talent, The Rock and Triple H. In The Rock's case, he's tasted championship gold and reached the mountaintop for a moment. With regards to the game, he was thrusted in during the summer, and while it took time for him to develop into the #1 heel main eventer, ended up working for the best, especially during this title reign. Triple H was elevated to the highest level, with the only two men above him being The Rock and Stone Cold. We should also note that the game's run was an integral part of why 2000 WWF is highly praised. With that said, let's get into it. Fresh off aligning himself with Stephanie McMahon and taking over the WWF, Triple H's first line of business was reminding everybody who he was. With DX by his side, the game was causing chaos, ruining Kane's life, punishing Mankind for speaking against this new regime, and of course placing The Rock in handicap matches. The final act of the year was for Triple H to win the coveted WWF Championship. At this point, The Rock had to go through hell to keep his job. Tori was slowly getting with X-Pac, and Mankind was fired. Later that night, it was time. The game was favored to win the title due to the situation. The match was no disqualification and DX were on standby. Big Show was fuming because he was seeing shovels before his very eyes. However, this was no problem for the champion, as Helmsley was the one who was suffering with this ridiculous onslaught. Then the game bounced back and DX interfered. Low blow from the Road Dogg, Billy Gunn blasted him with the title, and even then Big Show kicked out and he harassed the referee as he usually does. Problem was, whatever Big Show did, DX were there, and then Triple H delivered this mean-ass shot. He's got the match won with Mankind, the fired Mankind, drops him with a chair shot leading to the chokeslam, and Big Show still the champion. The game was raging, but it was no problem. I mean, he had more title shots than Batista because he was the authority. He was wrestling with so many cheat codes on because of this. With Raw in Miami the following week, The Rock kicked off the show in his hometown. He wanted to fight Triple H, but the problem was the game was set for a rematch with the Big Show. Add to that, he thought that The Rock was useless and wanted him in a handicap year fired match. As expected, JR was confused, leaning on disgusted, but the gray one was going 1-on-3 with DX. JR was pissed that it had come down to this, and the fact that Raw was in Miami. Because The Rock is in his hometown, he's going to get punished, all that. How Triple H even threatened to fire anybody who interfered in the match. To The Rock, it didn't matter who Triple H had in mind. He then gave him a preview of his main event match. Now, the Big Show wasn't the same Big Show as last week. He took a huge beating on SmackDown from DX, and he was somewhat hurting. Being the tough guy that he was, Triple H wanted to go at it alone. Obviously, this had a time limit to it, and that's a different story. Similar to last week, Big Show was a colossal task. He easily dominated with his size and aggression, and the game had to resort to using the environment to his advantage. Big Show had his moments to win it, but ultimately his window passed him by, and then Triple H took advantage of the interference tease to low blow the Big Show and hit the pedigree. 1, 2, 3... new champion. The celebration was in full display, how they even raised him above their shoulders. This also served as a bad omen for The Rock. How they were making fun of Mankind in this video package, just talking about how he sucks and is not hardcore anymore, and if anything, he's a joke. The Rock, meanwhile, was being missed by the Stooges, and this was anything but a good thing for The Rock. We're out here talking like he's gone. But what they didn't know was that The Rock had the "you're fired" boost. His man had so much intensity behind him. He attacked DX before the match even began, and the match itself was hellacious for the gray one. The odds were certainly far away from his favor, but this didn't stop The Rock from taking this beat down and still dishing it. And all of a sudden, Mick Foley comes in, dropped everyone including Triple H, and The Rock hit the rock bottom to win the match. And you know how this ends. JR's almost dying, Triple H is cussing out The Rock, and the gray one's rubbing it in on the stage. Just the personification of electricity. That's WWF 2000. Too much energy and momentum. As a result of Foley's actions, he was apparently wanted. DX, meanwhile, were punched for losing to The Rock, and Triple H was busy chilling, being jealous of Kurt Angle, and in other places, Mankind, sorry, human, was making a mockery out of Mick Foley and going on rides in Universal. He's talking about how nobody cares about him, he hasn't been relevant since 1999 and whatnot, and Triple H, meanwhile, was pissed off that Howard Finkel chose the wrong ball, which meant Rikishi was a challenger for the main event. They wanted him to rig it like it was a Champions League draw, but they botched. Mankind finally confronted Human and gave him one of those beatings. And similar to the Big Show, Rikishi had the game on size. But this was the WWF and anything could happen. Rikishi, though, backed that ass up and had the match won, but the game reached in deep. This was only a month after Rikishi debuted, and this match did a lot for him. Man was selling like hell, making him look good, but you know how this ends. Stephanie interfered, though, and Triple H used the chair. Looked like the match was ending, but Rikishi kicked out and they had to go with plan B, the title. This was more than enough for the DQ. And just to think about it, like, Rikishi was somewhat strong, you know? They had to do all of this to retain the title. Even after the post-match attack, Rikishi was still up, and all of this stemmed from the botched draw. Around here, nobody liked Triple H. Everyone was gunning for him and wanted him to lose. Whether it was the referees or JR, nobody liked him. Hell, his own guys didn't like him by the looks of it, and this came to a head on the January 10, 2000 episode of Raw. Kicking off the show, the entire roster came out. from lower card guys to the guys on top, and that's no exaggeration. Like, usually the main eventers are missing from these types of segments, but that was the contrary. Then The Rock came out. Triple H was confused, but it became apparent what this was all about. The roster wanted The Rock to speak for them. Why? Well, we're going to get to that in a moment. He called out the Helmsley regime. The fans didn't want to hear anything coming from Stephanie, calling her a whore, and the discussion was about Mick Foley. He told them that if they don't meet their demands, then they'll walk out and join the WRF, the World Rock Federation. So they better reinstate Mick Foley. This is kind of funny. In kayfabe, Foley was so beloved that these guys were willing to walk out. It's either that or they realized that he might set a precedent for which DX will fire them or whatnot. And what's funny is the fact that The Rock was going so far to create his own federation, then join WCW because it's such a train wreck. Obviously, I'm talking in kayfabe. The Helmsley regime met their demands, and Triple H even claimed that it was rehiring him tonight anyways. Rock was getting real comfortable, and he informed Stephanie that the fans were calling her a slut. I mean, what are they going to do, fire him? Another demand from the wrestlers was that nobody is getting fired unless there's a just reason. He claimed they're all about fairness before Mankind made his return to the WWF. I mean, it was either this or WWF DX, a show where everything's green. Triple H wins every main event because there's no chance of him losing to the Outlaws or X-Pac. Foley was more than thankful for The Rock sticking up for him, but straight up talked trash about the McMahon-Helmsley regime. Hell, he even issued a challenge for the Royal Rumble. The gray one then included himself in the Rumble match for the title opportunity, and Mankind was still trying to do far too much beyond his rehiring. He wanted the Outlaws in a match against each other. They were angry. To take it a step further, Mankind wanted Triple H and X-Pac in a match. The Rock booked DX in a match with the Acolytes, and the game was happy, but The Rock had 2 words for him: not done. It wasn't just the Acolytes. It was going to be The Rock and Sock connection with them, so it was going to be 4-on-4. To make matters worse, the trio verbally jumped Triple H. After their night of hell, there was still an 8-man tag team match. Triple H still had enough energy to drop Mankind through the announce table and bust him open to win the match. It was still enraged, and Foley was still intense. He took his mask off, delivered a slew of strikes, and sent Triple H running. All that damage he took, and he's still smiling, and as JR said, Triple H doesn't know what he's done. With a mentally bankrupt Mankind looming over his head, Triple H took it to SmackDown. Even though it seemed like everything was going awry for the game, he saw it differently. First of all, he explained how his decision making is for the fans, and instead of apologizing to them, he apologized to DX. As for Mankind, Monday was just a small taste, and if anything, his blood will stain New York City. Hell, he wants some of Foley right now, but unfortunately though, it was Human who came out. He did that sad Mankind voice, sucked up to Triple H, and then the real Mankind came out. He had enough of the game's jokes and asked what more does Triple H want from him. His job was taken away, his dignity was gone, and on the best day of his career, his shirt and face were ruined. The King was very confused at this, as it didn't sound like Foley. I mean, his shirt gets ruined more often than not. But after that beating he took, he reflected on Mankind. He's an entertainer, an author, a tough SOB, and he's a hell of a fighter, but even then, Mankind is not ready for a street fight at the Royal Rumble. The fans deserve a substitution, Foley said, so he brought him out. He brought him out by taking off the mask and the shirt. Triple H's face went from confidence to pure fear. And there's the wanted shirt, and Mick Foley confirmed that Cactus Jack is here. He ran into the ring, delivered several strikes, the game selling them like hell, and then Human blasted him with a chair and did nothing but infuriate the hardcore legend. He used him as an example to the game of what danger he has in store at Madison Square Garden. Only in wrestling could something like this happen. Or maybe a superhero movie. All Foley did was take his mask and shirt off, and everyone went crazy. He was the same guy, he's the same person, all that. He just switched alter egos, and Triple H lost it. You know, he lost that confidence he once had because he wasn't facing Mankind, he was facing Cactus Jack. So from my perspective, Mankind was not that dangerous individual anymore, and it makes sense. Over the past year and a half, Mankind went from this deranged, psychotic, bloodthirsty person to a fun-loving, joking, occasionally prankster, and sure we do see him get intense every once in a while, but he was never the same again. As for Cactus Jack, he was still the weirdo who wanted nothing but to bust open his opponent and even hurt himself if it came down to it. Iconic moment. I always used to see this on YouTube back in the day, you know, the ugly quality and whatnot. It was one of my favorite moments. So the odds of Triple H keeping the title, drastic go down. On Raw, Cactus Jack gave his final words ahead of the street fight at the Royal Rumble. He talked about how deep down Triple H knew that there was that psychotic man inside Mankind, and with his actions, he woke him up, and even though his blood was all over his face, he liked it. Mankind's taken loads of punishment, but he, Foley, is a different kind of man. Hell, he acknowledged how he felt that he wasn't the same man in the past year, you know, Mankind being the entertainer, and while Mankind will eventually return and make everyone laugh, Sunday won't be no laughing matter. Foley doesn't have any regret of the nights in motels and cars, the fact that his ear was cut off, all these things made him what he is, a bad SOB, and this man was so thirsty for blood, he wanted Triple H tonight. The game came out and talked about how the only thing on his mind is Cactus Jack, and he complained about how the match was made against his will, but it didn't matter. He was going out there to fight for this title, and he proclaimed himself to be more sadistic than Foley's ever been just for this title. Then he went on a tirade talking about how Mick Foley hates Cactus Jack for who he is, whereas he loves his dark side, and about a fight tonight, the game was more than willing to. But he wanted to party. Cactus decided to run to the party, DX jumps him, Rocky chants intensify, and there he is. The Big Show though just grabbed him and went after DX himself, and to top it all off, the Acolytes ran in and everyone was busy. Triple H was set to give his final thoughts on SmackDown. He went on about the Rumble last year and how Foley's kids consider him a failure before warning Cactus Jack to not bring his children to the pay-per-view, and beating him will be pure enjoyment. His kids crying is a positive as well. Before he can continue, Cactus Jack came out. This was despite Triple H's claim that he wasn't here. He agreed that the kids suffered enough last year, so he confirmed that they won't be watching the match. However, his worry wasn't about him taking a beating, rather the contrary, him dishing it out. He didn't want them to realize how violent he truly is. He didn't want them to see the bloodshed. Foley said that he's got a lot of surprises left in store for the game. Things that are sharp. Triple H was lost. He didn't know where he is, and Cactus decided to prey on him, knowing very well his kids are watching. This was mostly a one-sided beating, because even when Triple H used the chair, Cactus Jack was back up and provided an image that, if occurred on Sunday, would cause the ultimate demise of the man they call the game. Okay, that was a bit too much. Now, on the topic of the street fight at the Royal Rumble, this match will never not be iconic. It's a simple story. The champion steps on a man who it looks like couldn't take it anymore, but instead it's something he relishes. He enjoys a good fight. Triple H caused this man to go to a point where he rarely goes. A point that's further than Mankind, Cactus Jack. So instead of having a fight at the Rumble, it was going to be a massacre. As for how it actually went, well, let's just say for Foley, it was another day. Sure, it's a significant match in his career, but he's had so many of these. For Triple H, it was a star-making moment. He's had a couple of huge moments, taking leadership of DX alone, SummerSlam 1998, winning the title 3 times. This was far and away his biggest moment. This saying, we use it a lot, but it's his coming out party. You look at him differently after the bell rang, and what Mick Foley was talking about in the build-up was there. It was exactly that. A violent affair where Triple H was torn apart. Triple H was very resilient. Blood is all over his face. He's carved up. Foley's craving blood like I crave 100k subscribers. The game is bleeding like a stuck pig, but even then, he rose to the occasion. Helmsley brought out that level of viciousness and violence, and it was enough. Well, not enough after a pedigree, but enough after a pedigree on the tax. A very unmerciful ending, and even after that, he got back up and showed some of that Cactus Jack fire. Stephanie was horrified, but the worst had yet to come. Was the worst yet to come? I don't know. Either way, this was truly a spectacular match. The story was all about Jack being insane and out of his mind, and for Triple H to take it all and dish it out. Later that night, The Rock won, or cheated, the Royal Rumble, and he won the right to challenge the WWF champion at WrestleMania 2000. Even though the expectation was for the game to go one-on-one with the Great One on the biggest stage, it seemed like Triple H had to deal with one more thing. The next night on Raw, Triple H discussed the events of last night, and one minor touch I love is how he always sold his matches like hell. He taps out to Benoit, blood on his face. The next night he's got the Band-Aids. John Cena drops him, Band-Aids, and it's something cool. But back to the topic. Now, even though he disliked Cactus Jack, he still praised him for bringing hell. As for The Rock, he's ready for the match, and when Big Show heard Rock, he ran out there. You see, this man felt he was screwed over harder than Bret Hart. He acknowledged how he never received a rematch and understood why. It's because Triple H is scared of him. The fans were booing, and he talked about how he was robbed. The man was so salty, you'd think he lived in the ocean, and in kayfabe, he was right. They stole his Rumble victory, so Big Show wanted Triple H to book a match with the People's Champion, with the winner facing Triple H at WrestleMania. Now, the game was lifelong enemies with The Rock. This offer was more enticing than 30 minutes of mic time, but before he could give out his answer, The Rock was here. He started mocking the Big Show, making him look like the biggest joke, and he said that it didn't matter what The Rock's feet touched. The ground, the mat, Big Show's candy ass, he's going to WrestleMania. For Triple H, he took notice of all this and decided to team up with the Big Show to face The Rock in a tag team match. He also proclaimed his partner to be one of those jabronis. He's like, oh, go choose your jabroni partner or what now. Something along the lines of that. And if he fails to find one, it's a handicap match. The Rock was more than confident of his chances, and by the end of the night, the Great One did find that partner. It was Rikishi. Once it came down to it, the Outlaws were here, Cactus had a 2x4, and all that was missing was Teddy Long. This was before Teddy Long became a GM. Now, Big Show almost had his match with The Rock, but Triple H wanted proof. So he comes in looking like a road agent, and his proof was weaker than Colin Delaney. Triple H wanted him to get an eyewitness, and Cactus, meanwhile, finally addressed the match on Sunday. He held it in high regard, calling it his best match, but he also considered it a huge disappointment because he failed to capture the title. While he did lose, Foley had more than positive words for Triple H, elevating his level of violence to win it. However, the claim of Foley's blood-staining New York City didn't happen. It was the opposite. It was the game that was down on the mat with his own blood drawn, and because Foley had a good time, he wanted to do it again. It had seemed like Triple H was preparing for a fight, but it turns out Stephanie was here. She didn't understand why her husband should come out, and he was ready to face Cactus, but she stopped him. He ended up telling her that Triple H has no balls, and she slapped him. This made him threaten her with another slap, and he gave her a dose of what's in store, and this was more than enough for her to walk away. Being smart for once, Foley preferred to take his bag and leave rather than take an ambush beating. Triple H, meanwhile, was taking advantage of the Big Show asking for favors, and they were running roughshod on the top babyfaces. More problems were in store for the game as well, as Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko came to the WWF with the blessings of Mick Foley. The problem was, they weren't signed to the company. Big Show and other places was still looking for that match and refused to be taken advantage of. This was after Triple H walked back on his eyewitness claim. After causing chaos throughout the night, Triple H felt that they weren't good enough for the WWF. Foley knew that this was a big mistake, and a couple of minutes later, it wasn't Kane who came out for the main event, it was Cactus Jack. He was still angry with how the game treated his guests, and he believed that these men were world-class talent that were capable of entertaining any crowd in any country. And after some consideration, he wanted to fight. This brawl went Cactus's way, and before Triple H could run away, the four men were back. Foley still wanted them to get contracts, and after they failed their tryout matches, it seemed like there was no way for the four men to sign with the WWF, but then they realized, why are we with Cactus Jack? Why are we biting the hand that could feed us? Now, the Helmsley regime knew that Cactus Jack would stop at nothing to get his hands on them and the title. He had gotten way under their skins, so he issued a challenge. One-on-one at No Way Out, and this was going to be Cactus's last title shot. Not last title shot with Triple H as a champion, but last title shot. O&E refused to have any match involving 2x4s wrapped in barbed wires, and best of all, Foley gets to choose the match. He chose Hell in a Cell. Now, this was back when the mere thought of Hell in a Cell was considered the end. If you faced off in the cell, you were done with the other man, and the heels and babyfaces alike were fearful of this match because it took years off your career. Triple H, while somewhat lenient, accepted but wanted Cactus Jack's career on the line. Actually wanted Foley's career on the line, which included Dude Love, Cactus Jack, and Mankind. For Foley, this is a grand opportunity, and while it may go awry, there was one thing he was willing to risk it all for. It was the opportunity to main event WrestleMania, and he also wanted it for the title. Triple H accepted, even though the odds were clearly in Mick Foley's favor due to his experience in the cell and the fact that he was a desperate man. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Triple H informed Foley that he's got 20 days left in his career and wanted to fight. He was ready and told the Radicals that they've got two choices. Walk away or show appreciation to the man that gave you the opportunity. The man that gave you contracts, and you know how this went. They left him a beaten man with 20 days left in his career. JR was raging on, talking trash about the men, and this led to one of the most impressive Raw main events of all time. This is a match I will always love, and it might look out of place compared to other matches, but I assure you, it belongs. Now, Foley had to find some allies for this 10-man tag team match. The Radicals were out of the question, so The Rock wanted in. He told Cactus that his situation is not 5-on-1, it's 5-on-2. He's already kicked DX's asses for years. Now it's on to Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero, Saturn, onto Neptune, Pluto, and then he told him to shove the contracts up their candy asses. Just in time for the main event, Too Cool were the equalizer. The match had only begun and the heat radiating from the arena was far too much, but it's enough heat to light up an entire city. It was that chaos that everyone loves near the end of the show, but this lasted for 15 minutes. Everyone had their moment to shine, and if you never watched this, pause this video and go observe this greatness. To top it all off, Kane returned with Paul Bearer. It seemed like the babyface were going down, but then he made the save. Pyro goes out. Rawk concludes with so much momentum, all that. It was so good. With all these threats, Triple H felt it was best to take them out one by one. And hell, some of them were thrown into the DX Express. They had this bus that was clearly inferior to Lex Luger's, and they'd send their opponents to, I don't know where. They'd just throw them randomly or something. It seemed like Rawk was thrown in the bus as well, but he managed to escape and drop the Big Show, who was so happy to do DX's dirty work. But with that said, the whole DX Express thing would finally come back to bite them as Foley broke their window. So they decided to lock him up. He was stuck in a cage where Triple H was just taunting him and wearing him down ahead of his match on Sunday. Hell, they even dragged him with a bus. Attitude Era or something else. And No Way Out, the Big Show managed to punch his ticket to WrestleMania after beating The Rock with the help of Shane McMahon. This was his first appearance in 2 months as well. As for Triple H, he had to go through hell. Foley was out here promising to dive off the cell onto Triple H, all because he hated him and promised that it would be the damnedest thing he's ever seen. This one is once again very similar to the street fight, in quality to the story itself. It's nothing short of pure excellence and easily stands out as one of the most memorable and outstanding Hell in a Cell matches. Both men brought it and then some. As time went on, it seemed like Triple H bit off far more than he could chew. Cactus had some experience in this match, and that barbed wire promise was a lie. As expected, Cactus screwed himself over, and this gave way to Triple H. Even then, he still wanted to fight and paid the price. It got to a point where somebody was going to get hurt badly, and it also didn't help that the damn cell was more fragile than a mid-Carter's push in 2022. To make matters worse, Foley set fire with a 2x4 and then took a backdrop through the cell and through the ring. Stephanie had a smile on her face, and even Triple H couldn't bring himself to smile. He was only seconds away from experiencing the same fate, and with that, Foley's WrestleMania dreams were slowly being dashed away, but he was still moving. So Triple H hit the pedigree. 1, 2, 3. JR was in disgust and disappointment. It was a match that easily competes with a street fight, and Triple H had arrived. It had all the ingredients from the previous match, along with a huge stipulation by its side. Foley was apparently retired, although that's about as tight as this door. I mean, his best friend is Terry Funk. And Triple H was on to other things. The next night on Raw, Triple H said that he had more respect for Foley than just about anyone else. He understood the fans have that respect, and Stephanie was confused. Then he played a video package containing highlights from Mick Foley's career, then it turned into a huge joke with Foley getting embarrassed. Then No Chance in Hell plays and the fans get up. Turns out it's Shane and the Big Show. The WrestleMania 2000 main event. McMahon finally confronted the Helmsley regime and said that he wasn't going to allow them to take over the family business. He wanted to align himself with a champion, and he ain't talking about Triple H or The Rock. Before he could finish speaking, the People's Champion was here. He's congratulated the four of them, not for Shane's return, not for Stephanie for being the biggest tramp walk in New York City, damn, not for the Big Show going to WrestleMania and for certain, not for Triple H keeping the WWF title, but he congratulated the four for being the biggest assholes The Rock's ever seen. Rock knew that he lost, but he guaranteed to be the WWF champion. Triple H preferred if he didn't get involved because this conversation was between himself and the Big Show. As all chant intensifies, and he told the fans not to call The Rock that. After giving them a talk, he said that The Rock was going back to the line, and because of this, he's going to face the Brooklyn Brawler. Shane added insult to injury, saying there's no chance in hell of The Rock going to the main event of WrestleMania. Later that night, The Rock elevated himself from current jerker to lower card status. After the match, he wanted to give the game a beating. Then Shane came out and said, oh, this is going to become a title match eventually because, well, Triple H has an ego and whatnot, so he turned it down. The Rock said that if it's going to be Triple H and the Big Show at WrestleMania, then WrestleMania is going to absolutely suck. So they decided to give him one more chance. Well, it's the McMahon-Helmsley special. What I mean by that is it was going to be a handicap match with the Big Show and Triple H on one side and The Rock on the other. Shane intentionally cost The Rock the match after he had Triple H pinned. They added insult to injury, dishing out a beating. As for that partnership, it was quickly going south with The Rock beating the duo in tag team action on SmackDown after an accidental chair shot from the Big Show. The family drama was causing a huge rift between Big Show and Triple H, and it also didn't help that The Rock was right there capitalizing on all of this. Shane as well started poking insults, saying Triple H ruined his sister, saying she now looks and acts like a cheap slut. Damn. And she slapped him because of this. The Rock, meanwhile, still causing chaos and laying the SmackDown down. This led to the Big Show and Triple H forming a little partnership, and they had their issues and were ready to destroy each other, but The Rock was more annoying. After he went through a cage match with Chris Benoit, the Grey One had to take advantage of the ongoing drama to once again escape. It got to a point where things were boiling over, but they fixed things because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And The Rock was certainly the number one enemy for these four. First of all, he had to face the Radicals in a handicap match. After roasting the hell out of the Radicals and of course beating them, he had to face the Dudleys in a handicap tables match. He got bubbled, but Devon, that's a different story. All seemed well, but at the end of the night, the damaged Grey One once again inflicted pain with the same lead pipe he brought in, also proved to be his enemy as the three men left him battered and beaten. For The Rock, these people were as hard-headed as a wall, so it got to a point where he had to put his career on the line. After they made jokes out of the Great One, he came out and instead of making jokes, he quickly made them an offer. He offered them a chance to get rid of him from the WWF, but they had to meet his demand. The Rock wanted a match with the Big Show. If he wins, he goes to WrestleMania, but if he loses, he's leaving. They accepted, but he didn't want any other candy asses interfering. And if they do, he wins and goes on to WrestleMania. Triple H thought it was dumb of The Rock to do it, but he accepted. For The Rock, it was no problem because he's got the people. The Godfather and the host certainly wanted him to win, and later that night, Shane forgot to clarify that he was the referee for the match. The Rock fought with his will. He was fighting hard, but when it came time for the pinfall, Shane ruined everything. The end was nigh, all hope was gone, but then a limo arrived. The door opens, and it's Mr. McMahon. Everyone's cheering. Shane's in shock. Triple H is about to choke on his drink and runs to quickly put a stop to this, but he takes her right hand, and there he is. Shane knows he's got no chance in hell because his father had the return boost. He takes the shirt. Rock hits The Rock. Bottom 1, 2, 3. And as JR said, The Rock is, by God, going to WrestleMania. Only in the WWF where you'll see the boss attack his son-in-law and his son with the entire crowd cheering and going crazy. On paper, it was now The Rock versus the Big Show for the World Wrestling Federation Championship at WrestleMania, but that wasn't the case because Shane McMahon had something to say. Big Show here looked like one of those secondary antagonists from those early 2000s movies. That's exactly what he looks like and is here, I guess. He's literally the secondary antagonist for The Rock. All he needed was a jacket. But with regards to WrestleMania, it was going to be a triple threat match for the title. At this point, McMahon was by The Rock's side and it provided chaos. Triple H and Big Show were no longer buddies and Shane wanted to stick it to the game. There's the jacket. He wanted Triple H to put the title on the line before WrestleMania. He accepted the first part, but he refused to put it on the line against that big goof. Mr. McMahon came out and booked the title match, but The Rock was included. And this is my reaction towards my favorite team on a weekly basis. Triple H was angry, but he was a fighting champion. Also, he refused to have this match at WrestleMania. If it goes down, then that's it. It's never happening again. The boss took it a step further and told Triple H to kiss the title goodbye. The Rock, on the other hand, arrived and this was 2000, meaning he has no idea what's up. When he got word, though, his mind and his eyes were firm, dead set on the title. He was ready since he lost the WWF title at WrestleMania. As expected, the main event was hellacious. It's expected because this was 2000 and 3 McMahons were in ringside. The Rock had his moment, but Shane McMahon put a stop and the family drama ensues, leading to Triple H retaining the title. Shane had to run straight to Anaheim afterwards because Rock and his pace were a dangerous duo. As for Triple H, the worst news for him was yet to come. Linda McMahon was here. A fan took a beating from the game and she congratulated him for his victory, but then she spoke about the main event of WrestleMania. And it was clear that she felt somebody should be added. Somebody who was deserving of the main event, and because of this, it's going to be a fatal four-way with those three and Mick Foley. Fans go crazy, Triple H is in disbelief, and he takes a beating. He's got the return boost, so you know how it goes. Now, Foley's retirement was so sudden. Triple H was out here talking 20 days, and 20 days later, Foley's back. And also, the match slowly turned into the McMahon family drama match, which it shouldn't have been because there was enough heat behind the others. I'll get into that soon. Triple H was pissed with these turn of events and set his sights on Linda McMahon, feeling she doesn't have the right to tell him what to do. The way he was talking about her was something else, though. She clarified that Mick Foley was back for one night, and he refused to believe this. Then Triple H went on this tirade against Foley and how he'll regret this, and then called her a heartless bitch. Let's fast forward. Mick Foley gave his thoughts on WrestleMania and answered why he returned. It was because of Linda McMahon, and while he initially declined, he realized it was stupid to walk out on WrestleMania. I love how Jerry Lawler, despite the dislike towards Foley, couldn't help but appreciate how loved he was by the fans. About the match itself, yeah, Foley put the competitors over as expected, but said that it's his night. He started going off on Triple H about disrespecting Linda McMahon and promised to take his belt. The Big Show poked fun at the main event Street Posse, and Stephanie, she fouled up on her husband, and instead of leaving it at that, she dropped her with a slap. This is when the build of the main event took a backseat to the McMahon family drama, especially on the final row before WrestleMania. The other guys had their moments, but the attention wasn't fully placed on them. Stephanie was booked to face Jacqueline in the main event for the Women's Championship, and as expected, I assume, she won the title, and this episode ended with a chaotic brawl including the entire roster. The Rock single-handedly cleared half the ring, Foley had a 2x4, and Triple H came out to raise his title. Okay, so let's come down to this, a fatal four-way elimination match for the World Wrestling Federation's most coveted gold. This is the first multi-man main event since WrestleMania 2, technically. If you don't count that, then it's WrestleMania 1. For Triple H and Stephanie, it's about establishing the McMahon-Helmsley era. They got rid of Vince and Shane, and in that time dominating the WWF. For Linda and Mick Foley, it's about closure. Foley accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish in his career, except the main event, the biggest spectacle, WrestleMania. For the Big Show and Shane, it's about power. Big Show is already the biggest wrestler in the main event. He's dominated with his size and agility, but now Shane's on his side. With Shane's power and his hunger for more, along with Big Show's dominant stature, capturing the title could usher in an era of dominance. And for McMahon and The Rock, it's about redemption. The Rock had scratched and clawed his way back to title contention. Ever since WrestleMania 15, The Rock has not held the WWF Championship, and in that time, he's gotten screwed over, thrown to the side, and yet he's refused to give up. There's no other stage befitting for The Rock to capture championship gold than the stage that he previously held the same title. That's how I see it. Now, the family drama is still ongoing during the show. Mr. McMahon is determined to make it right. The Rock, before the match, had a very tremendous promo about his trials and tribulations, and he was fully focused and tried to tell everyone that this was about the WWF Championship, nothing else. And watching this promo, damn, he was looking like he was going to win the title. About the match, yeah, I would be lying if I said I liked it. The thing is, it dragged for too long. You know, if you cut it in half, it would have been way better. And in a way, it's like they wanted Foley and Big Show in the match, but at the same time wanted Rock versus Triple H. You can't have your cake and eat it too. There was a couple of nice moments in the match, though, you know, Rock and Sock reforming. At one point, Foley teamed up with Triple H to take out the Gray One. He failed to do much, and because of this, he was eliminated. He then brought in the 2x4, which is something, and so that left Triple H and The Rock. Watching this, I understand why it dragged. It's like I said earlier, they wanted two situations. I mean, The Rock and Hunter's arc went almost 20 minutes. He had to go through what was basically another match. The funniest part was when McMahon, who randomly attacked Triple H earlier, randomly turned on The Rock. Then they gave the fans false hope with a kick out, and so he had to deliver another chair shot. 1, 2, 3. That ending feels devastating to watch. It was The Rock's night. Everything was well done from the build-up from last year's WrestleMania, the promo, the way the match was, and it wasn't. This made Triple H the first heel to walk out of WrestleMania as a champion. Never before did that happen, and it was all for a McMahon family reunion. The fans were pissed, and they showed their displeasure with the WCW special throwing their drinks in the ring. But it wasn't all bad because The Rock bounced back by dropping the McMahons. Even Stephanie, who was far out of her element, he hit the rock bottom and the people's elbow premium on her. Yeah, but he should have done all this with the title on his shoulder. With that said, decent match. It just should have been Rock and Triple H. Now what we got here, the family drama was unnecessary because The Rock's story alone could carry the match. Hell, even if Rock came in without a story, it wouldn't matter because he was the biggest wrestler in the company at the time. But because of what actually happened, it overshadowed what should have been the Great One's crowning moment. There's obviously reasons for it. Backlash was coming out. The buy rate for that was ridiculous. But at the end of the day, every single top babyface won the title at WrestleMania except for The Rock. On the other side, it had to be cool for Foley and Big Show to main event and get an awesome payout. Now that Triple H was on top and had an entire McMahon family as a united front by his side, it proved to be a tough one for the Grey One. And the McMahon-Helmsley regime's first line of business was to have the Boy Wonder face The Rock, and thus begins the 2-month-long storyline where The Rock was constantly whooping their asses across the world. Whether it was in London, Washington, D.C., L.A., The Rock was laying the smacking down. Here, though, Triple H set him up, and man, did they give him a hard time. I would say Stone Cold never went through this much, but I feel I would be wrong. Triple H was out here hitting a pedigree along Shane to win him, but even then, The Rock, by God, kicked out. For all this effort they were putting to beat The Rock, it hurt them greatly, and Rock even beat Triple H in a match that's about as official as Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit's title runs from 2000. With Triple H busy elsewhere, the McMahons took it upon themselves to book a handicap match with themselves against The Rock. And infuriated, Triple H wanted The Rock for himself and was even willing to defend the title. However, cooler heads prevailed and the father-son duo got their match. Not for long as Stephanie convinced Father that the Road Dogg and X-Pac should face him in a handicap match. Oh, and Triple H was the special referee, and if that wasn't bad enough, The Rock's career was on the line. As expected, he had the retirement match boost, but even then, McMahon chased after the damn referee and ran after him like he stole the cash from WrestleMania. He then pulled him out of the ring, and The Rock refused to let that slide and dropped him with this mean-ass chair shot. Yeah, this feud was awesome. I haven't dived deep into it in a long time. It had this heat radiating from it that compares to a certain other feud. Later that week, Rock wanted McMahon to know that he wants a title shot, and he also wanted him to remember this picture. It was also a special occasion, as Raw was in his hometown of Miami. The boss had a chair in hand, but it was going to do no good. After a stern warning, McMahon put the chair down and booked The Rock in a match with the opportunity to challenge for the WWF title. Little did The Rock know that his opponents were Bull Buchanan and the Big Boss Man inside a steel cage. At the same time, this was similar to other storylines. McMahon wanted to take credit for creating The Rock and making him a household name. This all stemmed from Rock being a corporate champion. His marketing skills combined with The Rock's talent made him a superstar. Otherwise, yeah, he may have been a star, but without him, the superstar wouldn't exist. And then he got all sentimental talking about wanting a thank you for all the work he did for him in his career. And Rock was looking like he was going to shove the thank you somewhere. And because he never said it, that's why McMahon turned on him. Rock didn't give a damn about what he thinks, and then McMahon went on a tirade about how Rock loves assholes and how he's a perv or whatever, and about how he likes what comes out of it. Or what is he talking about? Triple H finally interrupted, and for a moment, I forgot this was his video. McMahon tried taking advantage of this, but got nothing but a thank you chair shot to the back. Triple H, being the good champion, meanwhile, wanted to put his title on the line against a mystery opponent. The problem with this is that Kai and Tai came out with the acolytes behind them, and when Triple H saw this, it's like you told him you can't have long matches. But seriously, I just love the idea of the APA. They obviously do something else later on, so for now, let's talk about Taka. Triple H sold the hell out of this match, and while not many were buying the idea of Taka winning, everyone wished it would happen, and Triple H sold so well. The rivalry between Earl Hebner and Triple H was heating up quickly, but nonetheless, Triple H bounced back, and the acolytes were attacked on the outside. As for The Rock, his steel cage match ended up being a mauling, a bloody beatdown that had to be stopped by the acolytes who were seeking retribution. At the same time, on SmackDown, Chris Jericho was asking Stephanie and Tori if they've seen The Godfather. Man was so damn cheeky. He was forced to explain and apologize, but not before being forced to face X-Pac and the Road Dogg. As for Earl Hebner, he was still being shouted at and was put on probation. The Rock, on the other hand, almost finally gave Triple H the beating that the game so ever deserved, but Shane interfered, and so the Boy Wonder ran out of there like Ben Simmons ran away from an important playoff match. He got caught though, and The Rock dropped him with the rock bottom. Jericho was calling Stephanie names, and in an effort to defend the honor of his wife, the game wanted Y2J. He bit off far more than he could chew, because after calling her all kinds of different hoe terms, he put his title on the line. This was a big mistake because Jericho attended the Intelligent Babyface University along with the likes of The Rock and Stone Cold, so he brought in the acolytes for protection. These guys were, as JR says, tougher than a $2 steak and would protect anybody. From the Mean Street Posse to the Hardys, all you had to do was pay up, and they'll do as their shirt says, kick ass. The match itself was heated from the same reasons. It's a crowd from 2000, Triple H is defending the title, and so they supported Y2J's every move. The action was back and forth, and after Mike Chioda was knocked down, Earl Hebner was here. Triple H shoved him and almost paid the price, but it didn't matter because Jericho hit the Lion Saw 1, 2, 3, new champion. The pinfall as fast as hell, and Hebner made a run for it. The game was about to drop everybody with his anger, and it was clear that in his mind that this was a disgrace. He was screwed over by an incompetent referee who had it out for him as well. It's an iconic moment from this era. Everyone hated Triple H, and the moment the ref counted 3, it was ridiculous. Afterwards, the game ran into the referee's locker room and grabbed Earl Hebner like he's a kid from a playground and wanted him to admit that he counted fast. He ended up getting what he wanted, that being the truth from Mike Chioda, and after forcing Earl Hebner to reverse the decision and bring the title back to him. And this was after Hebner refused to do so, and they were forced to meet his demand of never touching him as long as he's a WWF referee. Triple H fired him and kicked his ass. All was going well for the McMahon-Helmsley family, but this went south when Linda McMahon came out. She noticed that The Rock was outnumbered for Backlash, so she decided to put somebody in his corner. Mick Foley wasn't going to be the choice, and by the sounds of it, nobody knew it was Stone Cold, but the moment they heard Steve, that was it. Triple H was raging. Shane got flashbacks to the previous year, and in an effort to shut this down, the game sprinted out there to confront his mother-in-law. They were full of threats, but it didn't matter because Stone Cold was going to be at Backlash. She tried slapping her, but it backfired, and Triple H was ready to pedigree her. So Shane dropped him. The McMahon-Helmsley regime was being torn apart, and with the sound of The Rock's music, they were forced to coexist. He told both of them to stop playing Ali and Frazier, with the referee being the prostitute in training. On Linda's announcement, he said that the situation has gotten better. These fans were going wild just for the mere mention of Stone Cold's name, and even though they never seen eye to eye, both men agreed on the fact that Triple H is the biggest asshole walking God's green earth. Damn! At Backlash, he's gonna walk in, whoop his monkey ass, and walk out as the champion. Oh my god, this whole night was electric. It gets to a point where you question whether or not these fans have unlimited stamina or something. They saw Jericho technically win the title, they heard Stone Cold's name, they saw Shane and Triple H fighting it out, yet when The Rock comes out, it sounds like it was the first thing on the show. Ahead of Backlash, Taz was on the game's radar. He had just captured the ECW title from the hated Mike Awesome, who was going to WCW. Now, this wasn't Raw Rumble 2000 Taz. This was normal WWF Taz, so clearly he was inferior to Triple H. Taz did have a decent showing, but that's expected. At one point, Tommy Dreamer interfered and dropped Taz accidentally with the chair, leading to the victory. The Rock, meanwhile, had to face Chris Jericho in a lumberjack match. Obviously, the lumberjacks are heels, and obviously the situation didn't benefit The Rock, but for Y2J, it was slight. Sure, he won, but he took a beating. Leading up to Backlash, McMahon was trying to get into The Rock's head, talking about Stone Cold, and alluded to how The Rock could have played a part in running over Austin because, number 1, it was his car, 2, he had a motive, and 3, he was the man that benefited the most. Then The Rock gave one of his well-known rebuttals, and even then McMahon got one over the gray one, so he called a certain somebody for help on SmackDown. After Vince revealed Shane as a special referee for the match at Backlash, The Rock teased a Stone Cold appearance, and that was more than enough for the crowd. McMahon was getting worried and claimed Rock was a liar. Hell, he even said that Austin doesn't have the grapefruits to show up. So The Rock told him to shut his mouth. And the moment he guaranteed Austin was here, he was pissing himself. And so it begins. Then Austin sent a 316 message on the pager. The others were full of jokes, but the boss knew deep down that his sworn enemy was near. It got worse as the night went on, and they were so damn paranoid that they thought JR was speaking to Austin. And then the sound of a snake came from a bag, and yeah, it was a damn snake. They ran out of there and called him out. Triple H called him all kinds of words, and The Rock appeared. They were ready to give him a beating, but he wasn't dumb. He promised Stone Cold was going to be here, and there he is. Michael Cole was close to dying. Austin acknowledges DX looking for him, and he straight up told him that he's going to be on his own side at Backlash. Then he spoke about deconstruction and destroyed that stupid-ass DX Express. The build for the match itself was exciting and electric. The inclusion of McMahon wasn't really necessary, but it was great and elevated The Rock more so. It was out here dropping DX, and yet he still had to deal with Shane and Vince, who were two of the slimiest guys in the WWF. About the match itself, it's one of those special Attitude Era matches that you know about. It has the atmosphere, the action, and of course the story. The McMahon-Helmsley family had been a constant thorn in The Rock's side. At times they sided with him as allies, only to stab him in the back, but now it was all going to come together. Another story throughout the night was Austin's status. It went from guaranteed to doubtful. The match itself saw Rock dealing with insurmountable odds. Triple H took control of the match and slowed down the pace, but when The Rock started the comeback, the match picked up and so did the heat. Vince was getting involved, the fans were booing, they were doing fast counts, and it was pleasant. It was gaining momentum, but it didn't mean much because the others were constantly screwing him over left and right. So he dropped Shane and Triple H to the announce table. Father gets involved, and it seemed bleak for The Rock. The Stooges were here, and even then The Rock had enough heart to kick out, and the referees attacked. There's a sequel to WrestleMania, and it was all but over, and the glass shatters in Austin's ear. The crowd is on a hold whole other level. He drops everyone in sight with a chair except for the Rawk, and to top it all off, Linda McMahon was here with Earl Hebner. Stephanie gets shoved down, and in the ring, the Rawk hits the spine buster, and it's time for the most electrifying move, the People's Elbow. 1, 2, 3, new champion. That was something. It's just one of those must-watch matches. Everything aligned here, from the story and the wrestlers to the crowd itself. The Rawk finally got his moment. He finally stood tall as the World Wrestling Federation champion, and there's nothing better than that. He deserved it so damn much, and unlike a lot of others, he lost at WrestleMania, you know? Like, the top babyface losing at WrestleMania is something that never happened before at the time. Then again, we wouldn't have gotten this moment in itself because Austin was still injured, and McMahon had to turn heel for it to happen. Then Austin came in with a DX Express and celebrates with the Rawk, and as I said, this match was something, and if there's one word to describe this match, it was electric. Really something amazing. So that's Triple H's run. Honestly, this was a great run. I didn't expect the video to go as long as it did. You know, if I had known better, I would have made another video in its place, but it is what it is. The game proved himself. He was elevated by Foley. He was a top heel. He was having great matches and all that, and people would obviously get fed up with him as time went on, but here he was one of the very best, especially in the summer of 2000, which is a different story. Best match on here, probably his street fight with Mick Foley. That's probably his best match, as it elevated him to a higher level. My favorite segment here was one of the segments from the last part of the video. For certain, in the build to Backlash, you know, everything was heated and entertaining. I just loved it. You know what? If you guys give me 1,000 likes on this video, I will do Rawk's run as one of the next videos. So yeah. Alright, what you guys think of Triple H's run? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the spine buster on the like button, and perhaps the pedigree on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.